Whenever I set out to rant, I end up sounding too reasonable, so let's try and keep this as short and sweet and as punchy as possible. Tolkien's work is important to me. I listened to a rebroadcast of The Lord of the Rings on a little radio in the woodland on the hills surrounding the village I live in. I grew up somewhere not entirely unlike Hobbiton. Tolkien was in many ways my doorway into fantasy and into role-playing games via the old Iron Crown Enterprises Middle-earth role-playing game. Later in life, I came to appreciate the historical and mythological motivations of the man in creating The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion and The Hobbit. Britain is a weird place. Successive invasions made a weird sort of syncretic mythology from bits and pieces of Pictish, Celtic, Roman, Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Christian beliefs along with native folklore. Tolkien set out to create a mythology for Britain, influenced by these, restoring many of them, and using other mythologies from Northern Europe, including the Finno-Ugric myths of Finland, Lapland and Estonia, right down to the rap battle that made much of the world, and that's a mythology that hasn't been explored very much. Long and the short of it, I respect and value Tolkien's work in every facet and aspect, and I don't even particularly like fantasy, which says a lot about the quality of his work. Seemingly, I respect and value Tolkien's work more than the people who spent $1 billion to acquire the rights to it. The liberties being taken with Tolkien's work on this new Amazon series are legion and have been listed by many elsewhere, but I want to zero in on the backlash and the predictable nature of the backlash to the backlash that I'm seeing, even from people who I've previously respected who are writing off objections as racist or sexist, because people are objecting to black beardless dwarven women and so on. To characterise these objections as racist is ludicrous, but that doesn't seem to stop anyone. The objection that nerds are making is to the violations of canon, to not seeing the works translated respectfully and as accurately as possible onto the screen. Now, the nerd position on this is consistent. We want to see Japanese actors in an Akira remake. We want Faye Valentine to at least be Asian, preferably Singaporean, like in the anime. We want Death to be a cute, short British goth girl. We want Orlando Jones, an African American, to come back as a Nancy. Time and again, regardless of the race or ethnicity of the character in the source material, we want the source material respected and translated onto the screen. Forcibly diversifying Tolkien is as insulting as it would be to cast a white guy as Black Panther, an Asian as Anansi, an Eskimo as Jesus, or doing an all-Polynesian casting of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's not the race issue per se, it's the insult to canon and a beloved mythology. It's cultural appropriation and colonization of the most egregious kind, which I thought we all agreed was bad, wasn't it? Superhero films only got good when they became faithful adaptations. The Lord of the Rings films were good because they only changed what was necessary in the move from page to screen. We thought the lesson had been learned when it came to media, but no. Which, it seems, is why many recent adaptations that have forgotten this lesson are faltering and failing, and which is why fans are excoriating the Lord of the Rings trailer online. Not racism. Stow that shit, you disingenuous fucktards. And fans, don't put up with that shit. Shut it down the moment you see it. Because if it sticks, that being into fantasy and wanting an accurate representation of the source material on screen, if it sticks that that is somehow taken as racist, it will give actual white supremacists a toehold in fantasy, as people get angry with being written off as racists and pushed away and pushed out of what they love and enjoy. That's already happened in paganism to a big extent with Asatru and Norse mythology. We don't want it to happen with fiction, with Tolkien. And ironically, the people threatening to make that happen are the people who style themselves as anti-racist. Your objections are not racist because you're consistent. You want the source material translated faithfully, respectfully, onto the screen. So shut down that shit. And those of you dismissing any objections as racist can fuck off as well.